Greetings, my fellow freedom lovers and sovereign thinkers. This is LO3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful land of enchantment, which is also known as New Mexico. And today's date is Wednesday, November 2nd, 2016. Yeah, it's late Wednesday. So, well, hopefully everyone's out there just paying attention to what's going on. A lot of insanity stuff. Of course, DAPL still in the works. Hillary Clinton being investigated. Looks like they got some warrants, see some property, assets, including Anthony Weiner and Adele, who was involved with the Muslim Brotherhood, just another globalist agent, as far as I'm concerned. So, is this I've been keeping tabs on the elections. A lot of election fraud is occurring as well. More talking about it, sometimes how accurate it is. And of course, what made me laugh, I just found out, actually came out a couple of days ago, the New York Times said that Donald Trump has no links to the Russians. And of course, you know how the DNC, they're all going, oh, he's a Russian supporter, bah, 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 bah. And they support a woman who spreads her legs for the banksters, the globalists, the war criminals. But that's okay, right? Because it's Hillary Clinton. Oh, she's a great person. She's the most qualified person to do the job. Please. I gotta admit one thing. I never had so much fun in an election year than this one, and I've seen it coming for a long time. Well, some people are realizing we are whipping their asses in the information war. Even Lionel Nation, he did some stuff with RT on Shark Tank, talked about after this election, more people will be going to the alternative media. And he's right. Even Matt Drudge said the same thing, and many others. Hey, you know what? That's good, because we're doing this because we want to give you guys the facts and our views without being filtered, bought, and paid for. That includes myself. Not to be arrogant or being self-centered. No way. I like doing this. I like to be the rabbi also. Teach. Share information. And a lot of folks out there are doing it, which is great. It's cool because I was checking out examining about the whole rumors on the vote fraud and so forth. They're saying that Hillary Clinton won, but looks like it got reset. This is based on pre early voting. And according to this right now from Fox4News.com, I believe they're based out of Dallas-Fort Worth area. And right now they're saying so far there's a Hillary Clinton's leading with 43 million votes, 42%. Donald Trump, 40 million votes, 39%. Gary Johnson, 9 million with 9%, and Jill Stein for 4,563,700 votes, 4%. So it's so it tells you all about the states. And what really was interesting here, I was checking on the Senate race, and in Florida we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the race. Okay, and Marco Rubio is right now leading. All right. However, one thing I like here is Basil Dalek and Paul Stanton got double digits. Basil got 13% and Paul Stanton got 11%. And what's cool about this, because he got the libertarian, Paul Stanton's a libertarian, and I like his platform. But Basil Dalek, he's like an 86-year-old gentleman that lives in Palm Beach County, and he says his main goal is to have peace, plus bring our troops home. He wants to have get rid of the foreign entanglements, which George Washington talked about. Stop all foreign entanglements, and it was pretty cool. So I was very impressed with that. And it's cool about because he's not asking for campaign money. Just spread the word via internet, word of mouth. And he got like over under 900,000 votes in Florida so far, which is really great. The message is being sent. That's what makes me real happy about it. And I'm going to add both of these elections and so forth, so you folks can know what's going on this. But yeah, Basil Dalek for Senate, and he made a pretty cool. He made a pretty cool, pretty cool. He made a pretty cool announcement called Independent Peace Candidate for U.S. Senate for the great state of Florida. And he has a video and all that, so you can hear him yourself. But he had a little biography about his life. And so right here, and he refused to sign a sequester town oath because of the Bush administration. I think that's really cool. I didn't like George W. Bush either. Call him Jorge, you know. But and of course says here, about government of the United States has spent $4 trillion to kill 4 million people since September 2001. If we continue responsible spending of trillions of dollars, we do not possess to kill people over the world. We did as the Soviet Union will collapse for economic reasons, to say nothing of the moral depravity of killing human beings because they are not with us. And that's really cool. And it says, like we says here, my platform is simple. Stop killing, bring the troops home, follow the direction that George Washington pronounced his neutrality proclamation of 1793. No American citizen may become involved in any foreign war. And in his farewell address of 1796, America has no special friends and no enemies. The Republic minds its own business and follows the directions of Major General Smedley Butler in his 1932 Wars of Racket. And yeah, it's really good. So like I said, I was very impressed. That's like one thing he wants to talk about. So he's very anti, anti-war, anti-imperialism, and that's good. And I really appreciate that. He's 86 years old, man. God bless him. But I'm gonna add that to it, and of course, there's plenty of other things. You check out Paul Stanton too. I post a lot of that on Facebook. He has some good steps, and of course, there's other candidates that are in there. They have some good and bad. Don't get me wrong, but it's good to see nonpartisans taking the chance on running. I think it's really great. And even too, Florida's a close primary state because if you look at Louisiana and these ballots, it's really like wow, you know. So I'm not really endorsing Basil Dalek for the Senate, but it's good to check out his platform if you live in Florida. I would recommend it. And like I tell you, people, man, hey, it's great. I see like from the two major people from the from the non-major parties, including independents, are actually getting double digits in this particular position. I think it's fantastic, and we have to spread that message. Okay, like, hey, you guys are nothing. Democrats and Republicans, we can pick whoever we want. I do support repealing the 17th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution for the Senate, but based on this, I like it. So yeah, I'm going to add that too with the elections, so you folks could see for yourself. It's pretty cool. And of course, in Louisiana, it's like a open, like a primary / general election because every state does things differently. So yeah, I was like looking at that, and I was like, how many people are actually running in the Senate in Louisiana? Wow. 24 candidates are running for the Louisiana Senate. It looks like they believe in that do it open primaries for the general election. You have to look at the states' rights in Louisiana, but hey, each state does things differently. 10th Amendment, but of course, and of course you got Maryland and Nevada. So you got people running third parties, which is great. It's got to keep it going. So I'm very pleased with that. So I'm going to add that to it, and with Basil Dalek, and you can definitely check out the other candidates as well. But like I said, it's just very interesting how he does things. So you gotta give him you gotta give the man homage. The man's still doing it. The man's doing it. He could have retired and gone fishing, but he said, what the hell? He wants to run for office. So give him a little love, man. If you don't vote for him, hey, support his cause because it can inspire people. Plant those seeds. All right. Well, I'm going to be doing right now is the Washington Times. They'll be talking about the Dakota Access Pipeline again. And it says here, it's interesting, that feds entered Dakota Access freight order arrest for activists crossing creek. The administration took action against Dakota Access protests for the first time Wednesday by ordering the local sheriff to remove protesters for erecting a bridge to reach land owned by the pipeline company. The day after Obama said he would let the increasingly volatile protests play out, the local sheriff said the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers issued an order to remove a homemade bridge at Cantapita Creek, as well as protesters trying to reach Cannonball Ranch. The Corps owns the land just along the shoreline. Remember, it has to be 10 square miles they can own, okay? Just to give you, it's in the U.S. Constitution, all right? The Corps owned the land just along the shoreline, according to Bismarck Tribune. The United States Corps of Engineers has given Morton County orders to remove the makeshift bridge and arrest protesters who crossed for criminal trespass, said the Morton County Sheriff's Office in a press release. Law enforcement has used a boat to pull the bridge apart. Even so, protesters continue to gain access by swimming and using other boats to get across the river, said the statement. The Sheriff's Department said deputies warned the protesters to stop, adding that they were violating numerous federal and state laws. The department did not say how many activists were involved, but as many as 2,500 are camped out near Cannonball, North Dakota. North Dakota lawmakers have urged the federal government to send resources to help law enforcement with the activists, many of whom are camped out on federal land with the Corps' permission, but so far the administration has refused. Mr. Obama expressed support for the activists in a Tuesday interview with MSNBC, saying he hoped to find a way to accommodate sacred lands of Native Americans. Don't hold your breath, folks. We're going to let it play out for several more weeks and then determine whether or not this can be resolved in a way that I think is properly attentive to traditions of the first Americans, Mr. Obama said. He has too much on his plate anyway. he says, I'm getting ready to get the hell out of here, even though I suck. That's true, too. We're going to let it. More than 400 protesters have been arrested during the conflict that began August 10th, primarily for trespassing and rioting on construction sites owned by the pipeline company. The once peaceful demonstrators has grown increasingly violent, culminating in last week's face-off in which protesters burned 9 vehicles, set fires along the highway and bridges, then threw rocks and Molotov cocktails at deputies trying to remove a blockade from private land. Standing Rock Sioux Tribal Chairman David Archibald II praised Mr. Obama in Wednesday's statement for his commitment to protect our sacred lands, our water, and the water of 17 million others. Dakota Access LLC bought in September several thousand acres of land, including the Cannonball Ranch property, which lies just north of the federal parcel, serving as a site for protest camps. So that's what the Washington Times has to say. And the question is this: how many of these rioters are actually hired plants or provocateurs? Something you have to really think about, because they've been all this peaceful all this time, and now they're going to try to throw mudsling. Because even I was like looking at some lamestream news talking about that too. So we're going to continue on here with another one. Came from Activist Post, and if I'm correct, this is from originally, don't matter, it's by, what's her name? Carrie Welder. This one's entitled, "Here's Why Everyone on Facebook is Checking into Standing Rock, North Dakota." It came out yesterday. When it comes to brute force, law enforcement and private security currently have the upper hand on the ground in Standing Rock, North Dakota. They are employing armored vehicles, riot gear, tasers, rubber bullets, pepper spray, sound cannons, and other shows of force against peaceful opposition to the Dakota Access Pipeline. But unlike the most of the corporate media, the internet is taking note of the struggle at Standing Rock, and is trying to do its part to contribute to the protests. Over the weekend, unconfirmed reports emerged that police were using Facebook check-ins at Standing Rock to track individuals who arrive at the location to join water protectors. As the word spread of the apparent news, the internet stepped up to neutralize the power of the police surveillance state. Shortly after, Facebook users around the country and the world began checking into Sandy Rock with registers as Cannonball, North Dakota, in an effort to confuse police. According to a statement that many posters are copying and pasting, Morton County Sheriff's Department has been using Facebook to check-ins to find out who is staying at Sandy Rock in order to target them in attempts to disrupt the prayer camps. So, water protectors are calling on everyone to check in at Sandy Rock, North Dakota to overwhelm and confuse them. This is concrete action that can protect people, putting their bodies and well-beings on the line that we can do without leaving our homes. Others merely checked in, while still others added their own commentary. If you're neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressors, wrote Patrick Quinn below is his check-in. Messing with fascist, Luba Petrusha commented. While the troll effort is exciting, it's unclear whether the efforts are having an effect. According to Snopes, a self-described fact-checking blog whose conclusions are generally reliable, police claim they are not using Facebook to track protesters, Snopes reported. Sorry about that. Morton County officer explained not only they were not using Facebook check-ins as a gauge of anything, but that the metric presented no intelligence value to them. The rumor suggested that protesters cited Facebook check-ins as a manner in which police could target them, but check-ins were voluntary, and if police were using geolocation tools based on mobile devices, remote check-ins would not confuse or overwhelm. Snopes also claimed they spoke to protesters within the large camp at Standing Rock who said they did not use a call to internet users to check in. Nevertheless, they reportedly said appreciated the show of solidarity. Regardless of whether or not the online check-ins have any effect, the internet has played a decisive role in developing events in North Dakota. Live streams have documented serious violations of free speech and the right to protest, and Facebook was accused of blocking such footage on at least one occasion. Amid the ongoing lack of mainstream coverage, the independent media has successfully drawn the attention to the Standing Rock protest, and I have to agree with that completely. Considering the establishment has come out in full force in North Dakota, from their use of surveillance to their haphazard employment of heavily armed police, the increasing number of check-ins at Standing Rock shows just how much technology empowers people. Even if police aren't scouring social media and the check-ins fail to produce a tangible result, the rapid mobilization of efforts highlights a growing sense of opposition to unjust and exploitive power. And thanks to the internet, the world is watching. That is true. One thing, like I tell people this about Facebook, I love using the enemy's tools, and you should too. And people that know me, I never attempt to use like a lot of personal stuff. I'm talking about my personal life. I'll throw a few things in photos in there and such, which is cool. But not to really just talk about have a diary of my history, okay, personal history. I could talk to people on that. I'll use a podcast. That's no big deal. I have to admit that. Well, on the other hand, they love keeping tabs on people. And of course, I have, folks been stalked. I have good ladies I know that have been stalked because of Facebook. So, but one thing about it, I do try to censor and be extremely biased. That's why there's other alternative social media groups out there. I'll always say about, what's it, Freedom's Network, Scene.life, they're real good too, very pro-privacy friendly. You can post stuff on there too. So there's a lot of other avenues you can go to. All right, so that's why I always inform everybody. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. All right, we're going to continue on here. And it's interesting. It says by Nick Bernabe. And it says someone just donated $2.5 million to bail out everyone arrested at Standing Rock. And it says here recent following the recent mass arrest of 141 people at the Dakota Access Pipeline construction site located near Standing Rock, North Dakota. Sorry about that. An anonymous donor just donated $2.5 million to bail out everyone who was arrested at the protest. The news came in after Tamara Francis Forkiller, a tribal leader of the Caddo Nation tribe in Caddo County, Oklahoma, was arrested at Standing Rock. Francis Forkiller was released after spending 2 days in jail, but her family says she was just an innocent observer in clashes between the militarized law enforcement and Native American activists or water protectors. And here's an update. It says here a statement from Red Owl Legal Collective and National Lawyers Guild as advising Standing Rock has issued a statement saying the $2.5 million has not been received yet. We are waiting on confirmation from the Caddo Nation tribe. And of course, down here it says, according local news affiliate News on 6, family members of Caddo Nation chairwoman Tamara Francis Forkiller says an anonymous donor paid $2.5 million late Saturday afternoon to release everyone arrested on Thursday at the Dakota Access Pipeline site. They said, however, that Francis Forkiller should not have been arrested in the first place. Though the donor who sent $2.5 million remain anonymous, it appears the person is connected to the Caddo Nation tribe in some way. Anonymous donation is welcome news. Those arrested in the mass crackdown last Thursday. However, Standing Rock is still raising legal defense funds for future arrests, which all are but guaranteed to happen. So, hey, stand up for what's right, my friends. Everyone's got to donate. Hey, that includes myself. Send that money. Make sure it's done in good faith. Let's drive these tyrannical Uncle Toms and Aunt Jemimas who are law enforcement. It's trying to say, I'm just doing my job. Drive them crazy. Get them where it hurts. If they get bankrupt on this, so be it. Yeah, so, and another interesting thing here came out, an interview, which violent escalation at the DLP protest with Derek Brose. And Terrell Ventura is joined by independent journalist Derek Brose to talk about his horrific experience at the DLP protest. So I'm going to play that right now, and you can make your own decisions. So let's check it out.
Welcome, everybody, to Watching the Hawks. I am Tyrell Ventura. And joining us now from Houston, Texas, is freelance investigative journalist Derek Brose, who is dispatching from the front lines of the DAPL protests over last weekend. Thank you, Derek, for coming on.
Thank you for having me on.
So, Derek, as I said, you were there on the front lines reporting for Mint Press News when these crackdowns occurred. Was there one particular incident that set the chaos of the weekend into motion that you saw?
Well, the chaos that came out of the inevitable conflict, basically the water protectors, as you mentioned, they established camps back in April. Protests began in August. But beginning of last weekend, another camp was established, a new camp, which was called the Frontline Camp off Highway 1806, and it was established right on the pathway of the pipeline on land that the Sioux were claiming under their own form of eminent domain, claiming it to be their land, saying that the United States broke the Laramie Treaty of 1851, and the Sioux never ceded the land to the United States government. So they were reclaiming the land directly on the pathway of the pipeline, and obviously that set up a conflict that was the police and the Energy Transfer Partner employees coming that way, and that conflict finally came to a head on Thursday.
Now, what were some of the actions that you saw firsthand police take against the water protectors and the other activists there?
Well, I was tased. I had a beanbag round shot at me, and I was also pepper sprayed. One of the police broke from the lines and grabbed me and tried to pull me and to arrest me, but I was able to break free from his hands. They used the LRAD, the long-range acoustic device sound cannon, on unarmed peaceful protesters. I saw several other people pepper sprayed and grabbed and arrested. There was over 100 arrests going on, and it was a war zone. It was a police state. They were just lined up, across field to field and just marching, pushing people back, and anybody that challenged them or didn't move quick enough would get attacked in some form, some way, some fashion, or arrested and drug out of there. So it was very much a war zone and chaos.
Now, have the police cleared the construction site? You talked about building it right in front there is where that second camp was. Is that now clear? Like where are the protesters and the water protectors at this point after all the actions from the weekend?
So the police did successfully push everybody back past from the frontline camp. They basically came in with their armored vehicles, the LRAD sound cannon, tons of different police officers from local police departments in riot gear, and they were also bulldozing the camps. They bulldozed a sweat lodge, which is a sacred spiritual tradition in many Native communities. They were bulldozing people's tents and just taking property as they were pushing everyone back. So by the end of Thursday night, they had successfully pushed everybody within less than a mile of the Red Warrior camp, which is north of the Cannonball River. That's one of the main big larger camps, and they pushed everybody back to a bridge just north of the camp and essentially regained control of the construction site. So as of now, the police and Energy Transfer Partners have control of that area again and are able to continue construction as they please.
Well, now that's what's interesting to me too, is this construction site, because was I mistaken when I thought President Obama and the Army Corps of Engineers all came forward saying you need to halt construction, we need to rethink this, but now they're just pressing forward. Like what's going on with that right now?
So the courts, as far as the legal system and the judicial system is concerned, the U.S. Army, the Energy Transfer Partners has successfully won the right to build this pipeline. The last appellate judge, they said basically that they hope that the Army Corps of Engineers would uphold the spirit of the Historic Preservation Act, which preserves historic sites, sacred burial sites like the Sioux are trying to protect that are on the path of the pipeline. But ultimately, the decision is now in the hands of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and it has been. They could technically reverse their decision to grant this fast-track approval and say we no longer approve of this pipeline, or that we want to do further environmental review, which is what the DOJ and Obama administration has tried to call for. But at this point, it seems like this pipeline, which has billions of dollars and is invested in by most of the large banks that were also involved in funding the corporate media that keeps the blackout and funding the financial crisis of 2008, these same banks that are funding that pipeline and the oligarchy are doing what they can to push forward on the project. And I think it seems inevitable, but I don't think that the fight on the ground level is over yet.
Speaking of the ground level, we've seen different reports about just who is making up the law enforcement presence there. Could you help clarify from what you saw on the ground, who is all there standing up against these water protectors in the Standing Rock Sioux Nation? Because, I mean, all I see is, guys in black jumpsuits and boots, but how many different agencies are there? Who's on the ground there on the law side?
There's definitely the Morton County Sheriffs, which is the immediate county there, and all the surrounding counties have been called in to bring support. They've brought cops from Oklahoma, from Minnesota, and really from all around the country. I've heard reports of different states sending in different cops there. So you have a large presence of heavily militarized police from around there, and it's definitely creating an antagonistic situation. And if we have a moment, I'd also like to shine a light for a second on some of the people who are claiming to be water protectors, who may themselves also be working for these same police departments. While I was there, I was able to witness Thursday night after the initial raid of the frontline camp. That night, when we were pushed back to the bridge, I went back to the front line, and there was an SUV set on fire, burning on the bridge. There was music blaring, and it was a completely different crowd that night. There wasn't prayers. Didn't seem to be the peaceful, prayerful movement that we've seen throughout the past couple months. This seemed to be a different group of people who were dressed in what is known as black bloc gear, totally blacked out glasses and shades and clothes from head to toe. They all seemed to know each other, and they were lighting things on fire and throwing things at the police. It didn't seem to be about protecting the water or stopping the pipeline, especially because at this point they were on the bridge south of construction, and I was able to videotape the police throw tear gas canisters, fill the bridge up with smoke, and then under the cover of smoke come and park 2 armored vehicles, and every single police vehicle then exited the scene and left. And only moments later, these same I don't think they were water protectors, and some of the other people interviewed said those weren't water protectors. They seemed to be agitators from elsewhere. They went and then set fire to the armored vehicles, and I think this is a common tactic we've seen in Occupy and other places, as you mentioned. Police using undercover officers to come in and cause trouble in order to justify heavy use of force, or so that the media can then go report that the peaceful protesters, protectors, are actually causing violence. Or maybe these are people hired by Energy Transfer Partners, or just activists with no respect to the local community. Either way, the people setting fire to the armored trucks were not with the water protectors, and they in fact were being ran out of the camp by Friday. When I was there, the Sioux were trying to reestablish prayer as a centerpiece for their movement, and they were trying to push out all those who were advocating for violence and these tactics of setting fire and hoping that that was somehow going to stop the pipeline. So I think that's important for people to remember when they're listening to the corporate media reports.
That's very interesting observations. Now, what is the next step for the Standing Rock Sioux and the water protectors? Did the events of the weekend, did those events galvanize the movement, or have these events knocked them down, not only physically, but spiritually as well? What's the next step for everyone there?
So, I left on Saturday, early Saturday morning, and I was there both as a journalist and as an activist and supporter. I was on the front lines, and unfortunately, just to be completely honest, by Friday and towards the weekend, it did seem like the police tactics of trying to cause division were successful. I mean, I saw several fights breaking out between, again, the groups of people who wanted to be more extreme, the agitators, and different native groups arguing amongst themselves about the different tactics. And it does seem like they're trying to grab a hold of it and bring it back towards the prayer aspect of it. I did hear a call going out saying that there was going to be no more blockades taking place, and that they were, supposedly telling the Red Warriors, the more, I guess, radical element, you could say, to leave the camp. And Friday night, you could hear the drums and the prayers going deep into the night, and it seemed like that was about reestablishing prayer as a centerpiece moving forward. I think that's what's really going to happen. It does seem inevitable that the pipeline will be built, but I think what's important for people to focus on now is we realize that people around the country care about this issue and they're hungry for information, and we need to find a way to take the momentum of this movement and move it forward. Find a way to take this power that we have established and use it moving forward to build something better.
Investigative journalist and independent journalist Derek Broads, thank you very much for coming on today and enlightening us on the events of the weekend. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Yep, that's very interesting. I'm glad Mr. Bros did address that. Like he said, agitators and provocateurs started those areas which didn't have the same attributes as the actual protesters. So this is what you have to really examine is just people. Like I said, I've been seeing frauds and fakes and posers, okay, in these rallies, and we should start calling them out. So I understand that completely. I've seen it firsthand. But like I said, my brothers, you got to stay vigilant. And there's been talk about even other folks doing rallies around their cities. Do it. Make it happen. Hopefully, if I'm down there, I'll do some live feeds and interview with all you folks. It's even in South Florida. That would be awesome. But yeah, you got to keep the pressure going. We got to say yes to freedom and no to tyranny. Plain and simple. All right. Well, next one here. Enough of the DAPL. And it said next one here came from CNET.com. Came from Terry Collins. And this one is actually entitled Judge Upholds California Ban on Voters Taking Selfies Off Ballot. As it reads here, the law is the law. No selfies allowed at the polls in California. This is what the U.S. District Judge ruled Wednesday, rejecting the American Civil Liberties Union's request for an injunction lifting the state's ban on voters taking selfies of their ballot. The ACLU said the more than a century-old law banning cameras at the polls violated voters' freedom of speech. But Judge William Alsup took less than 2 hours to reach his decision, chastising the ACLU for filing a lawsuit Monday in federal court in San Francisco, claiming the voters' First Amendment rights are being denied from expressing their political positions, with Election Day less than a week away. Alsup claimed the ACLU was trying to run a 2-minute drill. The judge said he couldn't imagine changing a long-standing law, he said, that could lead to retraining hundreds of workers at more than 14,000 polling places across California's 58 counties. He also couldn't imagine how it will affect thousands of voters facing critical decisions by not being able to use a selfie stick with their phones to show others who they voted for. It is not so simple. Will a voter be allowed to go up in the voting booth and use one of those sticks so that the voter makes sure their face is in it? And they're going to check it out to make sure it picks up everything, said Alsup to Chuckles in the courtroom. Let's say they don't get everything. Can they try again? How many times can they keep trying? What if they don't like the smile on their face? How they have to get the face, the smile, the ballot all just right. These nuanced decisions should not be made at the last second. The California selfie suit came a week after pop star Justin Timberlake became headlines violating Tennessee law with his own ballot selfie as the nation prepares to go to the polls in an increasingly tight race between Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump and his Democratic rival Hillary Clinton. Michael Risher, a staff attorney for the ACLU of Northern California, told Alsop the civil rights group had been meeting with California Secretary of State Alex Padella's office to reach some sort of compromise. The group, however, still felt prompt to file suit after Padilla sent out a memo last month reminding election officials no cameras are allowed in polling places. This despite state legislators recently passing a law allowing photos of ballots not going into effect until next year. But Alsop said the legislator had the right to make an exception to the current ban last month, but obviously chose not to. He also said the ACLU had plenty of time to raise questions about the ban at that time and months before. If I'd known what I know now, I would file a suit, Risher told the judge. California Deputy Attorney General Emmanuel Thorchet told the judge that while Padilla supports the new law, he doesn't think it should take effect in this election season. Currently, 18 states ban the sharing of photos of voter ballots, while 6 other states prohibit taking photos in polling places but allow for photos of mail-in ballots. Judges in Indiana and New Hampshire have ruled against the bans of selfies in those states, and a lawsuit challenging New York's ban is still pending. After Alsop's ruling, Risher said he didn't know whether the ACLU will appeal the decision, but 6 days before the election. It is a loss for voters' First Amendment rights. It's an incredible, contentious election, one that people have lots of opinions about, and they want to show who they voted for, he said. We think they have the right to do that. Well, that's how it goes. You win some, you lose some, but many of us have expected vote fraud for a long time, and now it's beginning too obvious. And so, hey, my friends, it's just you got to be a little bit better organized. Now learn from this and pursue it in the next 2 years. I would start doing it now after the election, at least to get that ready and have all your ammunition and your organizing. One thing I know too about the mail-in ballots, which I'm planning to do my documentation as well and ask them the question about the machines. And when they put them in there, I want to know what's going on. So definitely do the mail-in ballots, my friends. Make it happen and send the message and post everything you can in good faith, because right now everything's going crazy. They're falling apart, and let's keep on creating more dents so it will crumble at our feet. All right. Okay, I'll be right back. So stay tuned. Okay, sorry about that. Had to use the restroom. Yeah, I'm keeping tabs on the World Series. Looks like the Cubs won the series 8-6 in 10 innings. I have to admit, it was a very entertaining game. I watched baseball a lot when I was a kid. I'm a little bit more balanced. I find it more like, hey, more of appreciative of the sport instead of like being from a cult religious perspective. So if you haven't watched it, it was a real good battle. You gotta give the Cleveland Indians credit because they fought to the end. And so hey, both teams had a great season. Doesn't matter, and the people in Cleveland should be proud of what their team achieved. But yeah, so that's very intriguing about this whole sense of sci-fi vote. So lessons were learned. Okay, next one here is interesting. Came from motherboard.vice.com. It's entitled "The Canadian Ministry is Investigating a Mysterious Noise in the Arctic." It's written by Jordan Pearson. In the tiny Arctic island of Igloolik, Nunavut, hunters say a mysterious sound, seemingly coming from the bottom of the sea, is driving wildlife away. According to the CBC, locals have different theories about its source and have attributed this ping or hum to a Ming company that has operated nearby or even to sabotage by Greenpeace. Both entities denied having anything to do with the phenomenon that hunters allege has made an area once teeming with wildlife a bit more barren over the course of the summer. Although the Arctic has been increasingly opening up to mining operations, tourism, and military exercises, this pinging sound remains unexplained. Without anywhere else to turn and with no leads on what's causing it, the office of the Primer of Nunavut called on the Department of National Defense to investigate in October. The Department of National Defense has informed of the strange noises emanating in the Fury of Helka Straits area, and the Canadian Armed Forces have taken the appropriate steps to actively investigate the situation. DND spokesperson Evan Koronewski wrote me in an email. We appreciate the information provided by the government of Nunavut and will follow up with the Premier's office once the investigation has concluded, he added. Canada is apparently becoming the official land of extremely exiled shit, as this is the first mysterious noise that locals have called upon the government to investigate. Citizens of Windsor, Ontario have long been plagued by what is known as the Windsor hum. In a 2014 public summary of an as yet unpublished government report on the strange hum stated that its origin could not be established, but that it might be the result of industrial operations in the area. It is unclear whether the DND's investigation into the Arctic ping will be any more fruitful, but until some answers can be found, there's going to be some pissed off hunters in Igloolik. Wow, that's an unexplained phenomenon. So, interesting stuff there. Like I said, my friends, the universe is a lot more complex than what it is. So, I guess we have to keep our ears on this matter and see what happens in the very near future. All right, next one here came from 10th Amendment Center.com. Not Guilty, The Power of Jury Nullification to Counteract Government Tyranny by John Whitehead. And you know me, I've been talking about jury nullification a lot in my past episodes, and this is what his perspective is, his viewpoint. How do you balance the scales of justice at a time when Americans are being tasered, tear gassed, pepper sprayed, hit with batons, shot with bullets and real bullets, blasted with sound cannons, detained in cages and kennels, psyched by police dogs, arrested and jailed for challenging the government's abuses, and power grabs? The politics won't fix the system that's broken beyond repair. No matter who sits in the White House, the shadow government will continue to call the shots behind the scenes. Relaying on the courts to restore justice seems futile. Indeed, with every ruling handed down, it becomes more apparent that we live in an age of hollow justice, with government courts largely lacking in vision and scope, rendering narrow rulings focus on the letter of the law. This is true at the levels of the judiciary, but especially so in the highest court of the land, the U.S. Supreme Court, which is seemingly more concerned with establishing order and protecting government agents than the upholding the rights enshrined in the Constitution. Even so, justice matters. It matters whether you're a rancher protesting at a federal land grab by the Bureau of Land Management, a native protesting an oil pipeline that will endanger sacred sites and pollute water supplies, or an African American taken to the streets to protest yet another shooting of an unarmed citizen. Unfortunately, protests and populist movements haven't done much to push back against an authoritarian regime that is deaf to our cries, dumb to our troubles, blind to our needs, and accountable to no one. It doesn't matter who the activist is, our environmentalists, peaceniks, Native Americans, Black Lives Matter, Occupy, or the Bundys and their followers, or what the source of the discontent is. Endless wars abroad, police shootings, contaminated drinking water, government land grabs. The government's modus operandi has remained the same: shut down the protests using all means available. prosecute First Amendment activities to the fullest extent of the law, and discourage any future civil uprisings by criminalizing expressive activities, labeling descendants as extremists or terrorists, and conducting widespread surveillance on the general populace in order to put down any whisper of resistance before it can take root. Thus, if there is any means left to us for thwarting the government in its relentless march towards outright dictatorship, it may rest with the juries and local governments to invalidate governmental laws, tactics, and policies that are legitimate, egregious, and blatantly unconstitutional. Just recently, in fact, a Oregon jury rejected the government's attempts to prosecute 7 activists who staged a 6-week armed takeover of the Mahler National Wildlife Refuge, and finding defendants not guilty of conspiracy to impede federal officers, of possession of firearms in the federal facility, and of stealing a government-owned truck. The jury sent its own message to the government and those following the case. Justice matters. The Mahler occupiers, who were not guilty despite the fact that they had guns in a federal facility, the lawyers argued the guns were as much a statement of their rural culture as a cowboy hat or a pair of jeans. They were found not guilty despite the fact that they used government vehicles, although they were argued that government property is public property available to all taxpayers. They were found not guilty despite the fact that they succeeded in occupying a government facility for 6 weeks, thereby preventing workers from performing their duties. As the Washington Post points out, this charge also had been used to prosecute extremist left-wingers and Earth First protesters. Many other equally sincere activists with eloquent lawyers and ardent supporters have gone to jail for lesser offenses than those committed at the Mahler Refuge. So that made the difference here. The jury made all the difference. These 7 Oregon protesters were found not guilty because a jury of their peers recognized the sincerity of their convictions, sympathized with the complaints against an overreaching government, and he balanced the scale of justice using the only tools available to them: common sense, compassion, and the power of the jury box. Jury nullification works. As law professor Leah Soman explains, jury nullification is practice by which a jury refuses to convict someone accused of a crime if they believe the law in question is unjust or the punishment is excessive. According to former federal prosecutor Paul Butler, the doctrine of jury nullification is premised on the idea that ordinary citizens, not government officials, should have the final say as to whether a person should be punished. Imagine that, a world where the citizenry, not the government or its corporate controllers, actually call the shots and determine what is just. In a world of rampant overcriminalization, where the average citizen unknowingly breaks 3 laws a day, jury nullification acts as a check on runaway authoritarian criminalization and the increasing network of confusing laws that are passed with neither the approval nor oftentimes even the knowledge of the citizenry. Indeed, Butler believes so strong in the power of jury nullification to balance the scales between the power of the prosecutor and the power of the people that he advises. Even if you are ever on a jury in a marijuana case, I recommend you vote not guilty, even if you think the defendant actually smoked pot or sold it to another consenting adult. You hear that? Another consenting adult. As a juror, you have this power under the Bill of Rights. If you exercise it, you become part of a proud tradition of American jurors who help make our laws fair. In other words, it's we the people who can and should be determining what laws are unjust, what activities are criminals, and who can be jailed for what crimes. Not only if should the punishment fit the crime, but the laws of the land should also reflect the concerns of citizenry as opposed to profit-driven priorities of corporate America. This is where the power of jury nullification is so critical, to reject inane laws and extreme sentences and counteract the edicts of a profit-driven governmental elite that sees nothing wrong with jailing someone for a lifetime for a relatively insignificant crime. Of course, the powers that don't that B, don't want the citizenry to know that it has any power at all. They would prefer that we remain clueless about the government's many illicit activities, ignorant about our constitutional rights, and powerless to bring about any real change. In an age in which government officials accused of wrongdoing, police officers, elected officials, etc., are treated with general leniency, while the average citizen is prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Jury nullification is a powerful reminder that, as the Constitution tells us, we the people are the government. For too long, we've allowed our so-called representatives to call the shots. Now it's time to restore citizenry to their rightful place in the republic as the masters, not the servants. Nullification is one way of doing so. Various cities and states have been using this historic doctrine with mixed results on issues as ranging as gun control and healthcare to claim freedom from federal laws they find onerous or wrong-headed, where notification can be particularly powerful. However, is in the hands of the juror. The reality with which we must contend that is justice in America is reserved for those who can afford to buy their way out of jail. For the rest of us who are dependent on the fairness of the system, there exists a multitude of ways in which justice can and does go wrong every day. Police misconduct, prosecutorial misconduct, judicial bias, inadequate defense, prosecutors who care about winning a case and seeking justice, judges who care more about what is legal than what is just, jurors who know nothing of the law and are left to deliberate in the dark about a life and death decision, an overwhelming body of laws, statutes, and ordinances that render the average American a criminal, no matter how law-abiding they might think themselves. If you're to have any hope of remaining free, and I use that word loosely, your best bet remains in your fellow citizens. Your citizens may not know what the Constitution says. Studies have shown Americans to be abysmally ignorant about their rights. They might not know what the laws are. There are so many in the books that the average American breaks 3 laws a day without knowing it. And they may not even believe in your innocence. But if you're lucky, those who serve on a jury will have a conscience that speaks louder than the logistic tones of the prosecutors and the judges and reminds them that justice and fairness go hand in hand. That ultimately what jury nullification is all about, restoring a sense of fairness to our system of justice, is the best protection for we the people against the oppression of tyranny of the government. And God knows we can use all the protection we can get. It is a powerful way to remind the government, all of those bureaucrats who have appointed themselves judge, jury, and jailer over all that we are and have and do. That were the ones who set the rules. We could transform this nation into a nation if only Americans will work together to harness the power of their discontent. Unfortunately, the government's divide and conquer tactics are working like a charm. Despite the laundry list of grievances that should unite we the people in common cause against the government, the nation is more divided than ever by politics, by social economics, by race, by religion, and by other distinction that serves to highlight our differences. Hopefully folks are listening to this. I'm going to post it on here too. The real and manufactured events of recent years, the invasive surveillance, the extremism reports, the civil unrest, the protests, the shootings, the bombings, the military exercises and active shooter drills, the color-coded alerts and threat assessments, the fusion centers, the transformation of local police into extension of the military, the distribution of military equipment and weapons to local police forces, the government databases containing the names of dissidents and potential troublemakers have all conjoined to create an environment in which we the people are more divided, more distrustful, and fearful of each other. What we have failed to realize is that in the eyes of the government, we're all the same. In other words, when it's time for the government to crack down, and that time is coming, it won't matter whether we supported Hillary or Trump, whether we stood with the pipeline protesters or opposed BLM, or whether we spoke out against government misconduct and injustice or remained silent. When the government cracks down, we'll all suffer. Here's the thing: the government wants a civil war. The objective, compliance, and control. Its strategy: destabilize the economy through endless wars, escalates racial tensions, polarize the populace, higher tensions through a show of force, intensify the use of violence, and then, when all hell breaks loose, clamp down on the nation for the good of the people and security of the nation. Hopefully, you guys are really comprehending this. The government has been anticipating and preparing for such a civil uprising for some time now. There was protests in Ferguson, Baltimore, and Baton Rouge to protest police brutality. The militarized police force, clad in cavalry vests, helmets, and camouflage, armored pistols, shotguns, automatic rifles, and tear gas, turning towns into war zones. The canailing of pipeline protesters in North Dakota. Those were just dress rehearsals for the government to work out the kinks in its operating manual on how to deal with civil unrest. They were also previews of what's in store if we continue to challenge the powers that be. After all, it is hard to persuade anyone to stand against tyranny when all you can promise them as a reward is prosecution in a one-way trip to the morgue, and when outcome seems to be foregone conclusion, the government always wins. It can seem pointless, even foolhardy, to dare to challenge the system. So, how do you not only push back against police states, bureaucracy, corruption, and cruelty, but also launch a counter-revolution aimed at reclaiming control over the government using nonviolent means? You start by changing the rules and engaging in some nonviolent guerrilla tactics. Employ militant nonviolent resistance and civil disobedience, which Martin Luther King used to great effect through the use of sit-ins, boycotts, and marches. Take part in grassroots activism, what takes a trickle-up approach to governmental reform by implementing change at the local level. In other words, think nationally but act locally. And then I explain in more detail in my book, Battlefield America, The War on the American People, nullify everything. Nullify court cases, nullify the laws, nullify everything the government does that is illegitimate, egregious, and blatantly unconstitutional. Damn right. He's absolutely correct. So I'll tell all you folks out there, once again, if you're going to try to compare the Bundys with this the Dakota Access Pipeline and go, oh, because they had guns, there's white privileges, you're a bunch of damn fools. Period. No ends, ifs, or buts. Your thought process is unacceptable. However, you can take the initiative on learning about jury nullification. Share this stuff to everyone you know. And there's plenty of websites to check out, and share this to your colleagues, because you are the most powerful person when you're in a jury. Don't be afraid to go to jury duty. Don't complain on Facebook. Hey, people, I gotta go to effing jury duty. You know what? Right there, you're telling me you're just a bunch of pathetic sorry asses. I'm sorry to say that, but you are. Based on your actions. It's unacceptable, null and void. You're just a bunch of tyrannical sympathizers. I'm going to bend over. Shut up. Tired of these whiners. Action speaks louder than words. That's what the information is so great. Is people out there doing something. And I give guys like Derek Bros homage, and all those folks out there are protesting against the Dakota Pipeline. And I was very happy that people were supporting the Mahler 7 in Portland, Oregon. You can't compare the other. Government's trying to screw everybody, folks. And this is why power of jury nullification is righteous. All right. Finally, I'm going to play a video too after this. Ooh. This one came from blog.naturalnews.com. That's over an hour. Wow. It's okay. This one's entitled De-Stress and Heal Your Body with Sound Therapy. Implemented by a variety of cultures for thousands of years, sound healing helps you may get more balanced. Whether chanting mantras, participating in a drum circle, or simply humming along with melodies such as actions can help transform you from a state of imbalance to one of balance. And when this almost deviate state of being is reached, your body can unleash its natural healing powers. Whether you suffer from anxiety, chronic pain, or other disorders, sound therapy may help you effectively manage the condition. So it's like a mental treatment, psychological treatment, I call it. How does sound healing work? If you do the meditation, then you already have a sense of how powerful sound is at to your state of being. Sound can alter our brain waves, or that can keep peace with external rhythms. The key is that the sound needs to be consistent so that the stable rhythm entertains the body's brain waves. While it might sound a bit clinical, what this means for you is that your normal state of consciousness syncs up with the sound's rhythm and effectively downgrade the state of being. You can shift to relaxed consciousness, a meditative state, and even the sleep state. You can incorporate sound healing into your daily routine via simple vocal tuning and breathing exercises. With regular sessions, you can use sound healing to awaken the body's natural healing response. How it feels? When you participate in sound therapy, you enter a more relaxed state being. It is very similar to meditation, except that laying down for sound healing is more common than it is with meditation. During the state, you become more aware of the sound's frequency and open to its vibrations. Consider how loud, unwelcome sound make the body feel, such as the loud scream of the stopping subway train or the whirring sirens when emergency services drive past you. Such sounds make the body tense up and boost stress level, which lowers your immune response. The exact opposite happens with sound healing. Stress's level decrease and the body relaxes, which results in a healthier immune response. Ooh, sorry about that. Sorry about that. I just did a little got distracted here. What can sound therapy treat? Sound can heal a variety of the body's ailments, especially during the sleep stage. Some of the ailments that can be effectively managed with sound therapy include PTSD, anxiety, migraines, depression, pain management, insomnia, and other sleep disorders, stress, panic attacks, muscle pain. Joshua Lees, the author of Power of Sound, has even noted positive results when using sound healing with autistic children. Practitioner Bill Harris uses rain sound machines and crystal bowls to treat conditions that are exacerbated by stress like irritable bowel syndrome, psoriasis, and chronic pain. The Los Angeles-based sound healer Jamie Bechtold uses turning forks to create sound vibrations that heals headaches, colds, and pulled muscles. How to get started with sound healing? If you live in a city like Los Angeles, then it's easy to locate a sound healing practitioner. These professionals often do group and private sessions, sometimes combining yoga practice with the sound therapy. For those who are not in the metropolitan area, look for a local sound healing group on a meetup.com or take the internet where you can listen into sound healing MP3 such as Tibetan chant or watch a sound therapy video on YouTube. There's plenty of sources to check this out. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Sometimes I like to listen to stuff like that to ease my mind and so forth. and get me like bring down the stress level. It's really good. So power music. But you should all try it instead of going for these confounded prescription pills, which the big pharmas want to shove down our throats. Go for other alternative remedies, and this is one of them. Okay, because I'm tired of big pharma. They're scumbags. They don't give a damn about any of us. And that's how I see it. All right. Well, that is all for now. I'd like to thank everyone for listening to this episode. Plus, feel free to download and share this about your social media networks. If you have any questions or comments, sorry about that. Or you can send me something that's interesting I haven't really checked out yet. Whatever you do, please deliver your correspondences with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Freedoms Network, and Scene.life. Or you can email me at LokiLuck3, which is LokiLuck and the number 3 altogether at gmail.com. Before I go, I'm going to play a pretty long interview with Adam Kokesh, because I know yesterday, past couple shows ago, talked about claimed that he was a fraud, and a lot of people in his campaign like cut him loose because he claimed to be sociopathic and all that. And you know how I never really make any judgments against a man. I'm not saying he's 100% innocent either. And he has to admit that. But some people are real critical, talking smack about him and all that. However, you folks can listen to this in his own words and make your own judgment. We all have our pros and cons, our strengths and flaws. They're all part of human nature. And like I said before, if Adam Kokesh gets screwed, it'll be on his own well-being. And I say that in good faith. So I'm going to be playing his interview, his own words, and I will add the link to the YouTube page on the Real Adam Kokesh, and have you guys listen to yourselves, all right? All right, my friends, once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.
Hey everybody, this is Adam Kokesh here at Freedom Ranch, and it's great to be home after a long 2 months on the road, and there have been a lot of requests recently for me to weigh in on the recent drama that's all over Facebook and some of the accusations that have been made about me. And I take them very seriously, and most people who know me, who have looked into the situation, have apologized or stood by me and said that there are a lot of people who are jumping to conclusions and making assumptions. And from what I can see, there are a lot of things that are being said that aren't true. But there is a grain of truth to all of them, and it's about me. And I want to be, as I feel like I always have been, or at least tried to be, in my career as an activist, as a public figure who has asked for your support in what I'm doing. I want you to know what you're getting. Of course, the message of freedom is a perfect message. And I am an imperfect messenger, not even close to perfect. And I think it's really important that we recognize that a lot of us are just striving to do the right thing, striving to make the world a better place. And we're not perfect people. You know, I have my issues, and I'm not going to wait until all of my issues are resolved before I do what I do to try to stand up for what is just and right. So there are a lot of people hurting. There have been a lot of emotions thrown around recently, and you know, like I do have a role behind all of this. You know, there's like I said, there are a lot of people who have come to me now and said, you know what, Adam, I'm really sorry that I jumped to conclusions, and you know, like I understand that there's you know, a lot of people who are jumping on you because of their emotions, because of whatever, you know, and I don't even want to get into that. Like, I don't even want to talk about anybody else's role in this but mine, and take responsibility for my role in this. So, like I said, of all the accusations going around, the grain of truth about me in some ways is a lot worse than what's being said. And I'll just go straight to the point of this, let you know exactly where I'm coming from and how I came to be who I am today. And the first major traumatic event in my life was going through my parents' divorce that started when I was 10 years old. Of course, there was lead up time to that. I did not grow up in a household where I had a set of happy parents in a model relationship. And they went through a really messy years-long divorce, and I saw them talk bad about each other. I saw them fight over me and my brother, who is 2.5 years younger than me. And we went through a lot of pain and suffering as a family during that time. And the primary effect that had on me was to leave me with a lot of insecurities. And my parents were pretty good about trying to get me help during that time. I went to some counseling, some therapy as a from the ages of somewhere in 10 to 13 or so. And I was on Prozac for a while. And you know how that can screw someone up. But it wasn't enough. And obviously, Prozac wasn't the answer. But more importantly, I didn't really get the therapy that I needed at the time to fully process what I had been through. And that kind of led me to the Marine Corps. I joined the Marine Corps in some ways to soothe that insecurity, to find acceptance and validation in something else. And it's really sad because I think a lot of people who enlist in the military have something similar that drives them, some insecurity that they're looking to soothe with violence or aggression or tribalism, or just the acceptance of being in the military, of having smoke blown up your ass all the time from people saying thank you for your service. And it's kind of a bad way of papering over everything else that might be going on with your life or what you're doing, to just say, well, you're in the military, so thank you for your service. And it definitely was a big part of it for me. So I hope if anybody's watching this who's considering joining the military, or knows someone who's thinking about joining the military, that they might consider that there is a deeper psychological aspect to the attraction of militarism. And when I was in the Marine Corps, I was in the reserves. I ended up volunteering to go to Fallujah in 2004, and I saw a little bit of combat. I don't want to try to, exaggerate or undersell my experience. I have a war memoir that I wrote as my college thesis that like really lays out my combat experience in detail. And who knows, maybe we'll publish it someday. But I was in the first Battle of Fallujah. I was shot at a fair amount. I experienced a lot of indirect fire. I saw, good handful of dead Iraqis, a handful of dead Marines, and I did some things that I really regret. And just to give you a sense, the two highlights, the two sickest things, and I've been telling this story on the tour every night, and at first it really tore my heart out every time I told it, and I'm kind of comfortable with it now. But guarding detainees during the siege of Fallujah, I helped torture them by participating in sleep deprivation while guarding detainees. I took a war trophy. I took a piece of a burned Iraqi's body because a girl back home asked me to send her a bloody rock, and I thought I could one-up her. I mean, it was sick, and as much as people look at my life now and think that I'm some kind of hero to worship or idol to look at as some paragon of freedom, like that's, anybody who knows me knows that's bullshit, and I've never been about that. And one of the things about recent events that I'm really glad about is that it has, for some people, knocked me off the pedestal. Like, yeah, and I've been trying to tell people this the entire time. Like, anytime, like on the tour, when people come up to me and say, "Oh, Adam, you're my hero," I say, like, well, then you don't get the message. I'm sorry, but you have, like, you go read the book again. Like, you haven't figured it out that you have to be your own hero in this life, and you can't be, if you really want to be free, it can't come from looking up to other people. So, when I came back from Iraq, I dealt with some very acute combat stress symptoms readjusting, and it was PTSD, but the Marine Corps told me, hey, it's just combat stress, you'll be fine, don't worry about it. And there were some acute symptoms that that kind of faded. I actually had anxiety attacks when I got back from Iraq for several months, where I would just sort of lose control of my mind and kind of freeze. One happened in a classroom while we were watching a lecture or watching a video for a lecture of some history of political violence or something, and it just kind of triggered me, and I just sat there with white knuckles grabbing the edge of the desk, and it, you know, just this overwhelming just sense of helplessness for 2 or 3 minutes. And there were a couple incidents that were not as easy to handle as in a dark classroom, let's just say. But there's been a part of this that's really stayed with me. And so I fell over backwards into activism. You know, like, I'm not supposed to be here. I feel like, you know, when people say Adam Kokesh is a fraud, yeah, like, I just fell over backwards into this. I didn't want to do this, you know, like, I want to do the right thing. I want to serve humanity. I have a pretty decent sense of self-awareness. I went and did, you know, I've done the Myers-Briggs personality tests, and I used to come out INTJ, and now I'm ENTJ, because I've kind of like forced myself to be less of an introvert. But really, like, if it was up to me, like, I'm a nerd. I want to spend time alone. I want to geek out. Like, I want to build stuff here at the ranch. I want to work on alternative construction. Like, that's what gets me going. Like, activism, even, like, as fun and exciting and satisfying and just and righteous as it is, like, it's not really what I'm cut out for. I'm doing this because, you know, I want to help people. And it was when I got back from Iraq, I joined Iraq Veterans Against the War, and I did some PTSD counseling that was very critical for me then. I actually led a peer support group. I helped a lot of other guys deal with their PTSD, and I got mine down to the point where I think it's been manageable. But I've used marijuana way too much, especially in the last few years when I should have been getting back to talk therapy like I did when I first got back from Iraq. And you know, really being able to address the lingering psychological issues that I've had as a result of this, rather than, oh, well, I can just, you know, smoke weed and you know, deal with the symptoms. So, you know, that's one of the things that's holding me back. But the last thing I'll point out about my history before I get to who I am and where we're at today is that the only serious leadership training I've ever had was in the Marine Corps. How to be an NCO, you know, like to talk to people like a drill instructor. And what this all kind of combines to is my deficiencies as an activist. I never thought that I would be building an organization around me ever, and sort of fell over backwards into that part of this too. You know, I started my activism with Iraq Veterans Against the War, and it was because when I got back from Iraq, I just wanted my story to be able to go and do some good for people. You know, I wanted to take my pain and suffering and use it to prevent pain and suffering in others. And, you know, I think a lot of people got behind me on that because there was a lot of power in that story and what we were doing as Iraq Veterans Against the War. So, you know, then I ran for Congress, had pretty well organized staff for that because I had a lot of help and people who understood who I was, who were close to me. And then, you know, working with Adam versus the Man, all the things I've done in media, up to the TV show and independent now, you know, I've struggled to work with people around me and to build a staff and to bring people into my life. And one of the things that I do to myself, and I've talked about this in the past extensively, it's like I really beat myself up over this message. You know, I really beat myself up because I believe that this is the most important thing to move humanity forward right now. So, you know, people around me have known that that I'm a workaholic, that I stress myself out and I beat myself up. And frankly, in the sense that I, abuse myself psychologically when I project all of that, you know, command and control kind of attitude and those high, extremely demanding expectations on myself, I project that abusive behavior, that outlook that I have on myself to the people around me, and that's really a sick thing to do. That's not healthy, and it's made it really, really hard for me to work with people. The people I've really the majority of the people that I've had positive long-term working relationships with have been military veterans. Hey, surprise, surprise. And it just I want to be as open and direct and honest about this, because I'm going to keep doing this. I don't really have a choice. I'm going to keep doing everything that I can do for the cause of freedom. I'm going to keep spreading the message. I'm going to keep waking people up. I'm just getting started here. But I do need help, and I've said this. Like, I really need help with these issues. I'm terrible at relationships. I've said this publicly before. I'm not. I don't have any secrets. I don't have anything to hide, and I want to apologize to everybody that I've hurt, to everybody I've rubbed the wrong way, or not represented my true self to, because my true self is a loving, caring, compassionate person who wants to help make the world a better place. And my ego and my issues and my damage kind of get in the way for me fully expressing that. So I'm sorry, and to be even more direct about this, to Macy, who I dated for most of 2 years and has made some public statements expressing how upset she is, and now you know the depth of the truth of this. So Macy, I want to tell you, for everything that I did that caused you any pain, I'm sorry. I apologize. I really own my role in the relationship, and I put you through a lot of hard stuff, and I got to hand it to you. You did an amazing job. I don't think that this is what you ever wanted, and that's fine. I wish that I had been better in the relationship in a way that could have made it end smoother for both of us. But dating me, especially these last 2 years, has not been easy. And you really put a huge effort into this relationship. You really loved me with all your heart, and I loved you with all my heart too. And it's really sad that it's gone this way. But yeah, I'm sorry for my role in that, and I totally own that. And I didn't give you the empathy that you should have expected in a relationship. And maybe it's too late right now, sure, but I understand how you're feeling, and I'm sorry for any role that I played in that. As for the recent controversy that we've seen around all of these issues and around all of the people around me, it's been really sad in a lot of ways to see people jumping to conclusions. It's been really sad to see people get out their pitchforks. It's been really sad to see a lot of rumors and lies, and people taking advantage of this for political purposes. I mean, that's really sick. Obviously, there are people who are hurting for personal issues, and to exploit that politically is pretty shameful. Obviously, a lot of the people who are really making this something ugly are revealing some serious issues about themselves. And on this tour, I've closed every speech of mine with a line that makes me want to cry every time I say it. And the line is, if you look around the room, if you look around the movement, you'll see that it's not the captains of the football teams or the cheerleader squads or the student body presidents who are the first to challenge the status quo and stand up to authority. We are a movement of freaks and weirdos and losers and outcasts and misfits and broken ones. We are the broken ones. So here's to the crazy ones, because we are also the dreamers and the visionaries, the square pegs and the round holes who refuse to fit in. We are the ones who have the decency to empathize with the victims of war and the police state, or maybe a neighbor who couldn't afford a load of groceries because of some unnecessary legal hassle. But this is our time. And it's just like in every cheesy Hollywood plotline, when the people like us get to step up and save the day by standing up to a bully. And we are standing up to the biggest bully in the history of humanity, the government of the United States. And then I go for my big applause finish, whatever. But I want to stay on this subject more importantly, because we really are a movement of broken people. We're not here because we're the cream of the crop or the best and brightest who have been treated well by the system or society. We are the victims. We are the downtrodden. We are the broken ones. We all have something about this. And if we really want to do this, we have to stick together. We have to support each other and build each other up. And even in that regard, I can't say that I've been perfect. I can't say that things I've said and done haven't hurt people. But I can see what has to happen. And it's not this. It's not what's been happening over the last few days, this past week. It's not that kind of tearing each other down. It's about building each other up. So, you have my commitment. You know where I stand. You know my comfort with my own issues that I have to work on. And you'll see me continue to work on my issues. And in my activism, I used to get a lot of people coming up to me saying, "Hey Adam, it's awesome about this video or that video or how you did this thing or that thing." But in the last couple of years, it's really shifted. Because now that I've been a full-time activist for almost a decade, people have seen the transformation that I've gone through from being the angry, like really angry anti-war activist to being the aggressive intellectual who just had to be right about everything, to where I'm at today, where I just want to share this message out of love and compassion and empowerment for my fellow human beings. And obviously I need to show myself a little bit more of that right now. You know, we need to show all of ourselves a little bit more of that right now. That's obvious after what we've seen, you know. And I don't want you to love me because I'm perfect. I hope that you love me because I'm broken. And I hope that if you do, you'll take that love and you'll share it with the people around you who are broken too. Use it to help heal this world. And maybe even share a little bit of that love with yourself. So, thanks for watching.